Hey, welcome back to the fourth episode of the Jackasses, the official podcast for the Salisbury University College Democrats. We did take about a week or two break, so I'm sorry about that. Sometimes life gets in the way. But we're back. I am one of your co-hosts, Jake Burdett, co-president of the SU College Dems.
And I'm Ethan Sensbach, vice president of the SU College Dems.
Yes, and we are back with a spooky Halloween-themed episode. Because this is scary stuff we're talking about, Ethan.
Yes. This is definitely some frightening stuff for the city of Salisbury in particular.
Yes.
We're going local this week. Bit of a change of pace from last week.
Because local
2 weeks
matters.
ago. Yeah.
Yes. And, this is the Halloween episode because this is scary stuff we're talking about. We are talking about the potential corporate takeover of a city.
Yes.
Yes. And it all ties back into one man who... gets a lot of praise around these parts.
Yes, kind of a local golden boy.
Local golden boy. That's a good way to describe him. Yes. So we probably might catch a little bit of slack.
I'm sure there'll definitely be a response. There typically is.
Yeah.
I think our third episode was probably nobody seemed to have any issues.
Yeah, no.
But, yeah.
Third episode, first one on video. Thanks to our producer, Gigi.
Yes, shout out to Gigi for producing.
Yeah, no, that seemed to get a lot of positive reception, which shows, yes. I guess, we can criticize in a way that people find productive.
I think this will probably be a similar reception to our first episode, however, where we're, zoning in some very specific critiques of certain kind of locally famed people.
Yeah.
That rub some people the wrong way.
Yeah, and I think statewide this might open up a lot of people's eyes in a good way. So ultimately, yes. I think it is worth it. But let's cut to the chase. No more dancing around it. The person who we are going to be criticizing on the podcast is popular Democratic mayor of Salisbury, Mayor Jake Day.
Mayor Jake Day.
Yeah, it's like Voldemort. We said his name.
We said his name
yeah.
after a bit of a walk around.
So I first want to preface, before we get into the criticisms and the issues that we have with this guy, of despite all of this bad things that we are going to say about him, he's not the worst mayor in the world. At the end of the day, any Democratic elected official is going to be better than any Republican elected official as a general rule of thumb.
Yeah, and I'll preface it a bit, focusing on the mayor debate that happened last week. Jake and I had a chance to go, and it was an absolute bloodbath for his opponent. He's running against King.
A guy named Wayne King. And
yes.
There is an election coming up soon on November 5th.
Yeah.
So, again, we're not saying don't vote for Jake Day.
Absolutely not. And I will say, if I was, if this was my registered area, I would go and I would vote for Jake. Even, prefacing that with everything we're about to go over, all the problems we have. Wayne King is an absolute joke. He would be a terrible mayor. Jake is absolutely the better choice.
Yeah, Wayne King running as very much a local Trumpian type figure, which maybe on the Eastern Shore, because it is more conservative, that approach might work in some areas. But Salisbury, it's a urban Democratic pocket in the rural Eastern Shore, so that type of Trumpian candidacy is just not going to sell well.
And this is someone that, on top of being that kind of Trump-like candidate, using a lot of racist dog whistling, was also just horribly underprepared. Had no idea how to answer several of the questions. Most of the questions was completely laughed at by the audience, which that's the first time I've seen that happen.
Yeah, so Jake Day is, by all metrics, going to wipe the floor with Wayne King. There's no realistic chance that Jake Day is not going to ride easily to victory.
I don't think anyone in the community takes King seriously.
Yeah.
I don't think King takes himself seriously.
Yeah, he's a laughing stock. He's it's entertaining.
It was an entertaining hour. There were some laughs, to be sure.
So we say that all to say Jake Day is not the worst guy in the world, but we definitely view him not as necessarily a force for good, but more a lesser of two evils type candidate.
Yeah. Someone where there's huge room for improvement and a lot of issues where we need to keep pressure on him.
Yeah.
You know, he's not the kind of person that we can say, oh, he's beat Wayne King, he's in, let's go to sleep while he's mayor now. We need to keep his feet to the fire on a lot of the issues we're going to talk about.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we feel like we kind of do have to step up and do this because locally the guy, like we said, he's the golden boy. He can do no wrong. He's getting nothing but over-the-top praise, both from really far right-wing figures and even the local quote-unquote progressive groups like the Lower Shore Progressive Caucus really propping this guy up. And people who aren't from the region, who don't follow local politics on the Eastern Shore very closely, they don't know any better, and they say, okay, well, we'll just take their word for it that he's this progressive guy. But for all these reasons that we're about to lay out, he's really not progressive in a lot of ways, and he's actually quite conservative, which I think is why he plays so well with conservatives.
Absolutely. He is a standard corporate Democrat. Neoliberal to his core, I would say. You can hear him talk. He has that, moderate voice.
He has the Obama-like ability.
He does.
As well.
He's a good speaker.
Yes.
As well.
He's very convincing bullshitter.
Yes,
But still, any neo-lib, for the most part, is better than any, far-right conservative Republican.
Absolutely,
like Wayne King. And, this Jake Day, this is somebody who, he does have some good policies like, for example, his Housing First initiative, which they're the first small city in the country to start trying to just build homeless people housing because it's actually cheaper than just leaving them on the street. So, I give him credit. I try to give him credit where credit is due.
Yeah, we don't want to completely bag on him because absolutely, the past years, he's put in some good policies. He's also done some really pretty awful things.
Pretty awful things. But,
to get into.
Yeah, just to put a pin on, I guess the good things is he's very much the modern Democratic Party dream candidate in that he's socially a left-wing guy, so he'll openly, try to embrace the local black community and say that he really cares about them or the local LGBT community. But he's still very neoliberal, center-right to right-wing on economics, and that makes me say, well, then you probably don't really care about these groups that you're claiming to care about because they're the ones most harmed by these.
Yeah, that's the standard kind of neoliberal playbook, which is you spend all of your time talking up the social issues where it's very easy to do these symbolic gestures and look very good in the community. But in reality, you're never addressing any of the systemic issues that cause problems for our communities in the first place.
Yeah, and just for full transparency, Mayor Jake Day, this is somebody that is my former boss. I actually once interned for this guy, and I, for the most part, enjoyed my experience. Really, no complaints there. So this is not anything personal. This is just purely policy and wanting the best for the city of Salisbury and calling out some really problematic things. So let's get into it. I think we've done enough praising. Now let's take him down a peg or two. It's easy to just see this guy at first glance and say, the Eastern Shore, it's all Republicans, and this dude's a Democrat who's,
Mm-hmm.
openly doing things like embracing the black community. So, this guy's probably pretty good. But I guess, and at first, because I'm not originally from Salisbury, when I first came to the region, I sort of bought into that without actually really digging into, what this guy really stands for.
I had the same kind of, entering in, going around to Lower Shore Progressive Caucus meetings initially. I had a very high view. I said, this is kind of, what great, progressive pocket to have such a great mayor here. What an opportunity.
Yeah, how lucky.
And then once you dig in, the reality comes out.
So here's one of the first things I heard about him that really made me kind of second guess myself about that. So meanwhile, when I first got here and I'm getting involved with groups like the Lower Shore Progressive Caucus, which I used to be a leader of, one of the biggest priorities for that group, at least for state legislation, was something called the Community Healthy Air Act, which is, and this isn't an issue if you're not living in a rural area where agriculture is big. This is not an issue you would be aware of at all. So me being from suburban Howard County, I had no idea what a chicken CAFO is. And for those who don't know, a CAFO CAFO. It's an acronym that stands for Concentrated Animal Feeding Operation. And it's basically where you'll have big factory farms like Purdue, which is a chicken manufacturing company based in Salisbury, and one of the main job providers in the region because there's not a whole lot of industry here. So Purdue uses these chicken CAFOs, which is basically like these small little houses, like very small, but they will have like 30,000 chickens in them in a small little confined area like that, and then when you have that many living creatures, whether it be chickens or pigs or cows or whatever, when you have that many animals in one confined area, they're going to produce a lot of shit.
Absolutely.
So that's what happens, and then you have these big industrial fans that blow all of these tons of chicken shit, fumes into the air, into the water. People breathe that stuff in, and it's believed that that's one of the leading causes of, like, disproportionate cases of asthma.
Yeah, if you look at the numbers, there's an obvious correlation.
Yeah, 1 in 4 middle schoolers in this county, in Wacomico County, has asthma.
And really, what else would it be?
Yeah.
Other than the chicken.
So, but because the poultry industry and big chicken has so much power, before we can even introduce regulations to do something about these chicken CAFOs that are used by places like Purdue, Purdue won't even let us monitor air emissions from these chicken houses.
Yes.
So the reason why they don't want that being monitored is if we don't have any proof that they're the ones where all this ammonia and all these other chemicals are coming from, then we can't regulate them.
And right there's the proof. If they don't, if there was no issue, bring in the regulators, monitor, and say, all right, guys, it's not us.
Yeah, what do you have to hide?
But they know exactly what we're going to find when they go in there, and we're going to find the evidence, the correlation.
Yeah. So after years, that bill is being pushed by groups like Food and Water Watch and local coalitions like Concerned Citizens Against Industrial CAFOs. After that, it was being pushed at the state level for like 3 years, facing mass opposition from the Delmarva poultry industry, which is the big chicken's big lobbying arm. The poultry industry says, you know what, we will let a study happen, but we're gonna fund the study.
We'll do it.
Yeah, we're not gonna buy it.
The government doesn't have to do it.
Yeah, or they want to sponsor part of it anyways. Just so that they can get their influence and make sure it's to their liking. But that's after for years saying, oh, we don't need a study, nothing to hide. So that was my first introduction to Purdue. In addition to the environmental destruction that they're doing to the air, the water, the bay, they often put these chicken houses disproportionately close to like low-income black communities, and so they're contribute to environmental racism. They like to take advantage of undocumented immigrant labor and put them in horrible working conditions.
On top of that, do not pay their workers a living wage.
No, not even close.
Not
even minimum wage. A lot of times.
Yes, that's true too.
And they also. They're tenant farmers that they contract with who have the CAFOs on their properties. They make them take a lot of the risk, but get very little of the reward, and then they make them
reaps the millions and millions of dollars that they make.
Billions
of dollars.
They make them sign NDAs and gag orders so that they can't speak out against the unfair practices, or they'll blackball them from the industry. So Purdue. By the way, 3rd largest chicken manufacturer in the country. This is off their Wikipedia. First 2 are Tyson and Pilgrim Chicken.
An additional thing to add here is we're talking about how horrible they treat their employees, but also looking at their practices with the chickens physically. It's horribly inhumane.
Yes.
That's the actions they're taking with the animals.
Yeah, they've been in a lot of lawsuits for lack of adherence to basic animal welfare practices. They've drawn criticism for allowing birds to be deprived of light, food, and water for long periods, permitting animals to be hung upside down by their ankles before slaughter. In 2010, and again, this is all from the Wikipedia page of Purdue, so if you don't trust Wikipedia, feel free to fact check.
Yes,
But in 2010, The Humane Society of the U.S. filed a lawsuit against Purdue for violating a New Jersey consumer fraud law by applying the labels purely all natural and humanely raised to its products when reasonable consumers would not consider the conditions Purdue chickens are raised in to be quote-unquote humane.
So the bottom line is this is not a good company.
Not a good company, not a friendly neighbor.
And honestly, quite a horrible one.
Yeah.
Really.
Animal agriculture, I mean, they are kind of uniquely bad when it comes to corporations, and Purdue is just as guilty as everyone else. So you're probably thinking, okay, so you're shit talking Purdue. They don't sound like a good company.
Yeah, what's the connection?
What does that have to do with Jake Day? Well, after being involved with all these local progressive groups saying that's one of their main issues, but they would still uphold Jake Day as some sort of ally, I find out, and I don't know how I didn't find this out sooner, it blew my mind. Jake Day, his dad, Randy Day, is the CEO of Purdue.
And this is such a well-kept secret. I don't know how.
Yeah.
You know, you hear this and you go, how did I not know? This should be something that is very commonly out there, and it's just not. No one's talking about this.
Yeah, I mean, Purdue, it's a multi-billion-dollar corporation, one of the biggest chicken manufacturers in the country, terrible for the environment, one of the main job providers in the area.
Yeah.
To me, that sounds like a massive conflict of interest.
Absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, it is kind of crazy how few people really know about it. I think the idea probably is keep it as well, downplay it as much as possible. Get that good image of Jake Day in before people find that out, so that by the time...
Oh, well, that's just circumstantial. And, he's still, look at all the good things he's still done.
Yeah.
So when you talk to people about this, they don't know.
Yeah, people are shocked, especially students.
You get a lot of surprised faces when you bring this up.
Yeah. So that seems like a massive conflict of interest because it's not like his dad just works at Purdue.
No, he's the CEO.
He's the head honcho.
He's not somewhere, in the corporate ladder. He's at the top of the ladder. He's in charge.
And, he has been before... So this only happened in 2017 when he became the CEO. So this is still relatively new. But even before then, he was the COO. So he's always been, high up and sort of an executive. And I kind of think that they were prepping Jake Day for this for a long time.
Well, if he becomes CEO in 2017, Jake Day becomes mayor.
Like 2016, I think.
Yeah, everything's happening pretty close together there.
Yeah, the timing's a little odd.
Yes.
And I think that this was prepped for a long time just because Jake Day, he did go to Oxford. I think he got a degree in city planning and urban design or something like that.
Very blue collar upbringing.
Yes. Who the hell
Oxford,
who the hell has access to go to school? Not exactly your common everyday person. But I can't hate him too much for, if I had the opportunity to go to an Ivy League school, if I had the money.
I don't want to pick on him too much.
But so now you may be thinking, well, maybe it is just circumstantial. Can we really attack this dude just for who his dad is if it doesn't affect his, actions in office? Well, I wish that were the case, that it's wasn't.
Absolutely not the case.
Yeah. So we have... I think Jake Day originally got elected on the city council in 2012, and then later, maybe 2014, became city council president, and I think became mayor in 2016. So we have this from his old website that he recently just took down.
Yes, it's gone. You cannot find it.
Yeah, but luckily there's a thing that exists called the Wayback Machine.
Yes.
Where... good thing and bad thing about the internet is nothing's gone forever.
Nothing goes away.
So now if you go on Jake Day's, because he's running for re-election, he updated his website and he changed his website, probably so no one would find this old one. But the new one is www.jakeday.com. The old one is www.jacobday.com.
Bit of a rebranding.
Yes. Yeah, and now if you go to jacobday.com, it redirects to jakeday.com. But again, go to the Wayback Machine, which periodically takes screenshots of just random web pages over time so that there's an archived history of what was on different web pages at different times. So go to the Wayback Machine and then go to jacobday.com, and then look in like 2018, and all this stuff is still accessible. He basically had his whole like vision for the city of Salisbury to rebrand it and like get it back on its feet, essentially.
This is his whole kind of laid out.
Yeah, it was like 40-something
Future
pages.
plan, yeah.
Our vision for Salisbury. That's the tab that it would be under if you go on his website. But to tie this back into like how does his father's status as CEO of Purdue affect his policies? Well, one, Jake Day was pushing for corporate tax cuts. In his opinion, he would say to like increase investment and development to like build up the regional economy.
And what we know from historical context is that's not at all what happens.
Yeah, no,
that's a failed economic idea.
It's just a handout to corporations, essentially. But not only, it's one thing if we would say, well, he wants to do corporate tax breaks and that benefits Purdue because it's a corporation. But no, this dude was either so bold or so, like stupid to do this.
I would say probably at the time, being earlier in his career, probably just stupid. Or a mix of the two. Yeah,
but he literally says Purdue by name of corporations he wants to give a tax cut to. So this is from his website on the inventory tax elimination. The city should lobby Wacomico County to eliminate the inventory tax over the next 5 years to create incentives for manufacturing firms to locate in the county and city. This directly impacts businesses like Purdue, Pohanka, and Pepsi. So literally, he's just saying
Purdue,
it. He's just saying it. We have to get rid of this tax that affects Purdue, which my dad happens to be.
Yeah, no, it's laid out pretty clearly. I don't know how much more, clearer it could be. In his plan.
So that's one. Then and he does this multiple times.
Oh yeah, it comes up several times in the plan and gets kind of more egregious as it goes on.
Yeah, another one here, the industrial wastewater credit allowance, which a tax credit is essentially a tax cut.
Tax cut, yes.
For industrial users of city water with wastewater discharge less than the water used, and then in parentheses, like Pepsi and Purdue, wink wink, this applies to Purdue, a credit can be used to reduce the cost to the user and to accurately reflect the service provided to those users. So another tax cut.
So later on another tax cut. Now we're,
Yeah, at which, not to sort of jump ahead a little bit, but after we found this stuff out, and sort of behind the scenes, we've been critical of Jake Day for a little bit.
But nothing very vocal at an event or
nothing,
any
not even really on social media.
Relatively quiet.
We did have a chance after we found all this stuff out.
Yes.
We ran into him at an event on campus at Oktoberfest, I believe.
We had a booth. Our club had a booth. Day came over. There was a bit of, I would say, maybe a 15-minute interchange, mostly between him and you, also a couple other of us.
Michael
The main
Goldsmith.
Conversation was revolving around his relationship with his father, and then this city plan as well. Yeah, and it's I think a lot was said about him by the way that he handled that interaction. Yes,
because there's really no way to defend my dad being CEO of Purdue. There's no way that looks good.
No, it doesn't, and he knows that.
Yeah, but he could still do, I guess, the more intellectually honest thing and try to make the claim of yeah, I mean, well, it's my dad, but and I can see why that looks bad, but look at policy X, Y, and Z have done that's hurt Purdue.
Exactly. He needs to, to put this under the bed. He would have needed to say, listen, here's where I came up front and I challenged Purdue locally.
Yeah.
I raised their taxes.
Yeah.
I took a public stance saying Purdue needs to pay their workers more.
Yeah.
Then you'd go, okay.
Okay.
This isn't a problem because we can see, obviously, Dad isn't.
It's not influencing.
It's not whispering in your ear. Here, there's just a lot of questions.
Yeah, so that would be the best way that he could possibly handle that. But a lot was said because he kind of went the other direction of just acting like we're crazy for even
for even bringing it up.
So the way that it went down is, you know, he comes over to our table, and like, because I interned for him and I am like involved in the local political scene, like, you know, he comes over and he says hi. You know, I bring up to him, that one of his staffers had like filed a complaint for my removal for Central Committee for criticizing Jake Day, which I have every right to be critical of him.
You know, God forbid you criticize the mayor, who's an elected official. Yeah,
so at first I brought that up to him, that one of his staffers did that, and it's being used to, you know, file for my removal from the Central Committee. It sounds like he had nothing to do with the staffer.
No, I wouldn't say he would, no.
And I believe him. But then, you know, from there, it brought up the conversation of why they even, like, pushed for my removal in the first place, and I had to tell him that I have been critical of him.
And he kind of did the step back. Well, what are you critical of?
Yeah, wait, what? You were critical of me? Which
I didn't know this.
I didn't buy that.
You didn't buy it.
Know.
Yeah.
But he said that nonetheless. But like we get to confront him about like the CEO. Like, your dad's the CEO. Do you think that's conflict of interest? And he's like, I don't know, Jake. Does your dad's job influence your decisions?
Yes. And your dad?
My dad's an accountant.
An accountant, yes.
Yeah, and it's like, that's just such a dishonest,
that is
false equivalency.
Not at all what we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's such a cop-out.
To act like my dad, who's an accountant, is, you know, the same level of power or influence over fucking city that the mayor, you know, that's the other thing. I'm not a mayor.
You're not a mayor, yes.
I'm on the Eastern Shore, my dad's in Howard County. But, yeah, to act like that's, you know, his dad being the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation
is somehow any way equivalent to, you know, a situation that we'd be in.
And, like, I really doubt he would sit there and defend if Jeff Bezos' son tried to run for mayor in Seattle, like, because Amazon is headquartered in Seattle.
Yes, and then suddenly Amazon gets more tax breaks. There it is, like...
Yeah, so that, you know, he kind of tries to dodge the question. He acts like it doesn't matter because Purdue is, you know, not a publicly traded company. But still, he's the CEO of the company.
Yes.
Like, they're going...
Yeah, whether it's publicly traded or not has nothing to do with the argument that we're talking about.
Yeah, it's still a conflict of interest. His dad is still incentivized to want Purdue to maximize profits as much as possible. And even if Jake Day is not getting the money now, his dad's going to die eventually. He's going to inherit that money.
He will inherit all of that.
So it is a conflict of interest. Then we brought up the taxes thing. He tried to deny that he ever pushed for tax cuts for Purdue. He didn't know I had these receipts.
Specifically bring up the plan. Then he pivots to, oh, well, it was so long ago.
Yeah.
Look at my current plans.
Yeah, he said it was so long ago, and like, oh, I was actually mistaken. The inventory tax didn't apply to Purdue. And it's like, one, I don't know if I believe that. And two, even if that is true, you still thought you were pushing for tax cuts for Purdue.
Yeah, you just happen to be incorrect.
Yeah.
You happen to be wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, so other than the tax cuts, also on his city plan, as what we view as like just an inappropriate conflict of interest that should not be going on, he wanted to create a visitor center / Purdue / agriculture museum next to the Purdue processing plant. This can be a signature attraction to those entering downtown and act as a nexus for redirecting visitors to other sites in the downtown area. This should be staffed jointly by the city of Salisbury and Wacomico County. So, literally creating a museum for Purdue, a private company.
Agriculture?
Yeah. A private company that is literally poisoning the community. Do you think that at the museum they would be honest about all the bad things Purdue has done?
It would be an absolute fluff piece museum. And I think the bigger question here is you're obviously going to end up funneling a decent amount of funds to establish, this Purdue museum. Who the fuck wants to go to a Purdue museum?
Yeah, well, they want to pull the wool over people's eyes and make people think that Purdue is such a friendly neighbor, which it's not. And, the most infuriating thing is if Purdue wants to create their own museum, they're a private corporation, they can do whatever they want.
Yes.
It should not be the city and the county fucking staffing it like it's the government entity.
Here's what happens is, and he words it very carefully here, it's a Purdue museum, it's also this visitor center. So you rope people in with the visitor center. Suddenly, oh my God, look at Purdue. How wonderful.
Yeah. So it's get them as soon as they, like, if they're not from the area or if they're just moving in, they want to get familiarized with what should
Suddenly
we know about?
You have a positive opinion of Purdue.
Yeah. Which, by the way, this was from a couple years ago. They did get something similar like this, and we also brought this up to Jake Day. Purdue, as if its influence on the city wasn't bad enough, they have now destroyed the business school. It was probably pretty bad before.
Yeah,
but
the absolute horrorscape that is the Purdue School of Business.
Yeah,
I walk in there and my soul dies.
Yeah, Purdue, to increase their influence on the university and on the curriculum that we teach, they essentially donated money to the university to build a new School of Business, which is called the Purdue School of Business, and it now teaches like incredibly pro-capitalist.
I would say hardcore right-wing capitalism that goes in the class. We're both in econ classes right now, completely unchallenged. It's presented as any other text. School textbook.
This is the objective truth.
This is the fact.
There's no competing theories.
Yes, it's going in anti-rent control, anti-minimum wage, which when I say right-wing, hardcore Republicans won't even touch minimum wage.
We're not talking about like, we shouldn't increase the minimum wage. No, they're like abolish the minimum wage.
There shouldn't be. $7.25 is too much. There shouldn't be a minimum wage.
Anti-union as well.
Yes.
So my theory is that Purdue pushes for that because they benefit off of that, very laissez-faire, anti-regulation.
And they have a essentially Purdue museum.
Yeah, so
in the back. Yes.
That's what we were getting to. So they created this Purdue school maybe like 2 or 3 years ago. It's relatively new, and they created a museum for Frank Purdue. So I don't know if that.
Now, granted, it is a smaller museum, but it's if you've ever strolled through it, I would encourage people to go look. It is very much what you would expect out of a fluff museum.
Yeah, so I guess it's better that we didn't get like its own. Maybe Jake Day realized that's like too blatantly in your face.
Now it's just on a public campus.
Yeah, now it's just a bunch of students who are like looking to be business people.
Yes, going through. I want to be Frank Purdue.
Yeah,
wonderful.
Exactly. So, last sort of problematic thing from his website, although I haven't even looked at all of this. So like,
and this is a large document. There's a lot there.
Yeah, this is over 40 pages. I just did like Control F Purdue and like look for like the problematic Purdue stuff. But he also has a lot of stuff about like no impact fees for developers.
It's the whole thing, I'm sure.
Yeah, but this is kind of similar. This is just more tying in the university, the business school, and Purdue. In concert with the Visitor Center project, Salisbury University and Purdue initiate planning for an informational and commemorative space in the downtown area for agriculture, agribusiness, and Purdue's relationship to the area.
Yeah, so
I don't know how people could say like his dad being the CEO doesn't influence it.
If this isn't, I don't know what more you need.
Yeah.
Than this.
So last one, this is just to show that sort of the school is being used as like a money-making tool to find like young, hungry entrepreneurs willing to work with Purdue. Seek matching state, county, and Salisbury University / Warwick investments, and investment in startup businesses should be sought from Purdue and other established firms.
Yeah.
So Shark Tank for Purdue, essentially.
Ironically, there used to be Shark Tank cutouts in the Purdue Museum.
Yeah, they're the type of people to like worship Mark Cuban.
Mark Cuban, yes.
That makes sense. So that's just one piece of like his problematic stances when it comes to Purdue and
corporations in general. His view kind of on lowering tax is going to somehow improve anything in the area.
But people could be thinking, well, like maybe he's bad because of the personal conflict of interest with Purdue. But other than that, is he a good progressive mayor? Mm-hmm. To which I would say no.
No, and I think the best issue that we can show this, because this ties into he's socially progressive. We can talk about his record on policing, which is pretty egregious.
Pretty bad, yeah. And I actually had a personal experience. So the Salisbury police chief, woman named Barbara Duncan, she came in and spoke to my law class maybe like 2 or 3 weeks ago, And she stayed there for like 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Which I respect to her from putting herself on the hot seat in front of a bunch of students for that long length of time, but still incredibly problematic answers.
Yeah, I mean, she's not in support of ending the criminalization of drugs, which is the drug war, the failed war on drugs,
marijuana specifically.
Yeah, she's kept on talking about how she hates big government, which is like dog whistle.
The absolute dog for everything.
Yeah, shit talked safe injection sites.
Mm-hmm.
She kind of defended civil asset forfeiture pretty hard, which is just the practice of
just stealing
the police
things.
saying, you have something, we're going to take it because we think it's going to be used for a crime. We don't need proof.
And we will hold it indefinitely,
Yeah. So, in addition to that, just him having a really far right-wing, tough-on-crime police chief, which if you were this progressive guy, that wouldn't be your police chief.
Yeah, absolutely not.
In addition to that, relating back to the debate that we saw the other night, Jake Day came out hard in support, bragging about his approach to crime so far, bragging about his use of quote-unquote predictive policing.
Yeah, there was a definite, when he said that, and my eyes lit up immediately. I was like, did he just say predictive policing? Yeah.
And that's using like computer models to route like which areas are going to have more crimes, which ends up just profiling like black neighborhoods.
Essentially, it's profiling.
It's been heavily criticized by the ACLU, and it's such a right-wing idea.
There have been lawsuits for its use before.
And we were watching the debate live with a couple friends from the club, and you said, Jesus Christ, predictive policing, and people who weren't there were assuming, that's such a right-wing thing. That must have been Wayne King.
They were like, I can't believe Wayne King said predictive policing is a good policy, and then we had to go back and go, no, it was Jake Day.
It was Jake Day, yeah. He said that at 26 minutes, 10 seconds is the timestamp.
The video is out there if people want to hear it.
Pack 14 YouTube channel if you want to watch the debate yourself. It's worth a couple laughs. But, in terms of just his approach to crime, not very progressive,
No.
And he brags about this being tough on crime.
We have some of the language from his recent ads.
This is from his literature, campaign literature. On safety, Jake delivered a record-breaking increase in police on our streets to keep us safe. Yeah. Friendly little police state. Yeah, we're wrapping it up. But
I was before we leave the topic of policing and wrap up. I have this article selected that, for me, kind of sums up the core problems with Jake. This is an op-ed that he himself wrote in 2015 when he was in Baltimore during the uprising after Freddie Gray's murder by police. So just a brief clip here from what he said. Like any Marylander, I was sad and angry to see what was happening in Baltimore. And at 7:17 a.m. that Tuesday, when my commander confirmed that the 158th Cavalry would ride again, I was also eager to join my fellow cavalry troopers to restore peace and order to Baltimore. So that is one, I would say, a dog whistle.
Yeah.
Which we heard several in the debate when he talked about policing as well. But I think this just kind of articulates his worldview on policing, and also, when someone explains, Jake Day, he's a progressive champion. I'll read him this paragraph.
Yeah, and there's...
And that, to me, finishes any question that he has any right to use that title.
Yeah, and, just the way that he sort of goes about this is he kind of villainizes the youth as like misguided and like they don't know what they're talking about.
They're in the streets, causing chaos. Doesn't mention anything that led up to any of these events, and completely sugarcoats the police at the end of this article.
Yeah, he goes on to describe an interaction, alleged interaction he had with an older black gentleman who was, I guess, like trying to like be the mentor and like lead these young misguided kids down the right path. And this is what he said that the guy said. Most police officers are honorable people that seek to serve and protect. The soldiers aren't here to hurt you, and they aren't calling you thugs. Yeah, so just like trying to like paint the police as like these really good people, and it's not the police that are misunderstanding. It's the
because the reality of that situation was that the police that showed up were absolutely there to hurt people.
Yeah,
and that's been the history there for a long time.
Yeah. So he's kind of got this weird tough on crime, Blue Lives Matter type thing, which does play well in this sort of area.
Yes.
But in addition, because we do have to wrap things up soon, but in addition to, his problematic stances on policing, pushing for corporate tax cuts, doing all this corrupt stuff with Purdue, he's also gentrifying the shit out of the city right now.
Yeah. Huge problem downtown happening. We heard a lot of discourse during the debate about downtown. A lot of what Wayne King was saying were the wrong criticisms to take. But there are legitimate issues that people are having. My main concern with downtown and what I'm seeing, I grew up in Scranton, Pennsylvania, that went through a similar kind of attempt at revitalization. And what ended up happening in the downtown there was they pour a lot of money into it. They bring in these higher-end businesses. And what happens is nobody can afford to shop and or eat at those restaurants. This is a working-class city as well as a college city. We can't afford to go to these stores. Downtown, we have shoe boutiques opening, higher-end sushi restaurants where you're going down, you're dropping $100 on a meal. Who's going to fund these businesses? So what happens, and what I saw happen in Scranton, is within a year and a half, all of these places closed, and we have an empty downtown again. And I fear that is what's happening here, and that's my main concern. Yeah, and it is good to some degree to like improve some parts of the city, but only some parts of the city are getting improvement, and it makes the property values of the surrounding neighborhoods that aren't getting the work, their property values increase, and it pushes all the poor people out. Yes, it continues to push people, and we see this in so many cities, continue to push them further and further out. So it doesn't actually solve any underlying like causes of crime. When he brags about the lowering crime drop, it's because you're just pushing them to other poor places. So he's really gentrifying this, whether intentional or not. That is going down, and it's going to continue to keep happening. We heard that in the debate. He's full steam ahead on these policies. He's committed to downtown. Yeah. So there's that, and like it's not he could make the argument of like, well, I'm trying to minimize all of the adverse effects of it, but like. I mean, right now, Brianna Murphy, who we had as our last guest on the podcast with the Salisbury DSA, she's pushing for, like, a tenants' rights union for things like rent control, right to a lawyer for tenants, just cause evictions. Looking at evictions, so you can't just be evicted for anything. Crickets. Jake Day hasn't done any. No. If he was this progressive dude, then he would have already pushed. This would be a huge issue for him. Yeah, if he really cares about, trying to protect instead, from like you said, silence. Yeah. So there's that. One just to wrap it up. One last point. Recently, progressive groups, or really just the Lower Shore Progressive Caucus, is like the only progressive group. They should probably take the P out of their name. Yeah. But they're having a thing. They're claiming that he supports single-payer health care. Yes. I have not seen him take a strong public stance. We haven't seen that. We were in a Twitter thread argument about it. He was tagged on all of these. He could have jumped in and set the record straight. Here's this quote about healthcare, though. And this is from him in an answer to a series of questions. No, this is Whitney Palmer, vice chair of the Lower Shore Progressive Caucus, wrote an article about healthcare referencing Jake Day, and they try to say that this is Jake Day coming out in support of single payer. You tell me if this sounds like a single payer. Let's hear his answer. This was from Whitney's article. As Salisbury Mayor Jake Day stated at the forum, our goal should be to provide more and higher quality care to Americans, especially access to mental health services. Is access or just more and higher quality care, is that Medicare for all? That is absolutely not Medicare for all. We're seeing this nationally right now. Whenever you hear a Democrat running for office, specifically president right now, say access, tune out immediately, because you're not getting Medicare for all from them. Yeah, so that's like basically all these substantive policy-based critiques, although there are many more that we don't have time to get to. Down the road, we may breach this again after the election.
Yeah, we'll see. But just one last problematic point. Okay, one thing we forgot to mention. He doesn't want to make Salisbury a sanctuary city. Where
Yes. Well, this is so. We had a brief conversation about this. It's one of those things where you get the answer, "Oh, well, I'm open to this," which could mean a lot of things. It's something that I'm trying right now. We're going to reach out, hopefully, to work with him on. We'd like to work with him on it. But it's one of those things where, why hasn't this been done already?
Well, he was denying that sanctuary cities actually do anything.
Yes, he essentially was saying, "Oh, well, it doesn't matter, it's symbolic." But for him, he loves symbolic gestures.
Yeah.
If symbolic gestures don't matter, why have the rainbow sidewalk, which he's so proud of?
Yeah.
You know.
Which is apparently all the LGBT
Whereas in a point on the
community.
sanctuary city, we go down 50, Easton is a sanctuary city. So there's a
Precedent.
Precedent, thank
Yeah.
you, for doing this locally, and it's something that is so easy to do, we need to do it.
Yeah, and to me, it just sounded like an excuse for because your police department, if you make them no longer cooperate with ICE,
You do lose some
funding,
yeah.
but that's no excuse.
Yeah, which the police do not need more funding.
Exactly.
That's at the end, we don't need that funding.
Exactly. So that was the last of the substantive
Yeah.
critiques, although there's many more. I recommend looking at his entire 40-plus page plan and finding some problematic stuff of your own.
And watching the mayor debate, would highly recommend
Pac
watching
14
that.
YouTube
Yes.
channel. But, the last point I do want to make, and then we'll leave out on that, is, aside from all the policy stuff, a lot can be told about a person by the company that you keep.
Absolutely.
And
especially in politics.
The types of people that you support and the types of people that support you. Jake Day, big progressive champion, according to some people. In 2018, endorsed Larry Hogan. You could type in Jake Day, Larry Hogan. You will find some of those articles. One from Delmarva Now, one from Lower Eastern Shore News. Salisbury's Democratic Mayor Jake Day endorses Governor Larry Hogan.
Yeah, and this was during an incredibly important race when Ben Jealous needed all the help he could
This is
get.
October 8th, less than a month before the election.
Jake Day holds some name recognition, some sway. He knew
locally,
what he was doing.
Yeah, and he endorses Hogan.
Yeah. Complete coward.
The Lower Shore Progressive Caucus will try to be like, oh, it wasn't an endorsement. Well, this was published in multiple articles. This was not a mistake. If it was a mistake as an elected official, no one would let somebody lie about your endorsement.
At the time, it was sold as a mistake, but nothing was said afterwards.
And Jake Day didn't say that publicly. No. Jake Day saying that behind the scenes to Lower Shore, to so that they'll still support him and they
But
fall
to
for
me,
it.
that's clear.
Yeah, no, endorsed Larry Hogan in 2018, and now that Jake Day is up for re-election, he just secured the endorsement of Larry Hogan.
Larry Hogan, yes.
You got it back.
Yes.
Return the favor.
Absolutely.
And he put a big post bragging about it.
Yeah, his relationship with Hogan.
Yeah, and what's funny about LSPC is they always criticize Larry Hogan for being bought off by Big Chicken, and it's like, if they really believe that,
then now...
Yeah, well, now we see the connection.
Yes.
We see the connection,
yes.
yeah. So, Jake, a progressive, one, would not get the endorsement of Larry Hogan, and two, certainly would not brag about it.
And would not want the endorsement of Larry Hogan, especially with what he's doing now.
And the very last thing of how you know this guy's not a progressive, there's basically two people in this year's presidential race that are seen as progressive choices. Who are they?
It's Bernie Sanders, it's Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah.
It's very clear.
Which obviously we view Warren as the more watered down version.
Of course, yes.
Hence our last podcast and why we endorse Bernie over her. But she's still, no one can say she's not on the progressive wing of the party.
Yes.
But, so, if you really wanted to, not go all in on the progressive thing, you endorse Warren.
Warren right now, and we're seeing this with a lot of sitting Democrats, is a safe endorsement. You can seem progressive, but you don't have to put your neck on the line.
It's not too progressive, it's still safe. But no, this dude, he's all about Mayor Pete. Put up, I'd heard him praise Mayor Pete before, and it makes sense. They're both two young, ambitious,
young mayors,
neoliberal mayors.
And you can simply look at South Bend and what Pete's done there, and the scandals that he's embroiled in, and see where probably what Jake Day sees,
pretty
familiar
similar
with him.
Yeah. So that's his guy, I guess. Is Mayor Pete, they're both veterans.
Yes,
from
very similar stories. It's interesting.
Yeah, but that says a lot about Jake Day's, character and where he stands of like that he's not going to go with a Bernie or even a Warren.
Because he's not it's not his ideology.
Yeah.
So we should stop calling him it.
Yeah.
Essentially.
So we hope, again, we don't want to paint the picture that this dude's the worst guy in the world, but he's also, I don't really think you can call him progressive. He's somebody that we need to pressure, and if he does want this progressive label that's being applied to him, he has to prove that to us.
He has to walk the walk on a lot of these issues.
Yeah, so please do some of your own research into Jake Day.
Yes.
Thank you for listening. We're about to wrap it up.
Yeah, we'll wrap up here, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, my name's Jake Burdett. Follow me on Twitter at Jake_Burdett. We got a College Dems Twitter.
Yes, College Dems Twitter. Follow us at it's SBY
College Dems. Yep. Well, thank you. Tune in next time.